This is the stuff dreams are made of. I'm writer-collector Ryan Condal.
And I'm writer-collector Dave Mandel. And this is the stuff dreams are made of, brought to you by PropStore.com. Because it's their turn. PropStore, PropStore.com, London, Los Angeles, soon Hong Kong. No, not really.
Yeah,
but for all your prop needs, check out PropStore.com.
Prop storing needs.
Yes.
No,
if only.
They store them and then they
just
sell them
become
to
a
us.
storage thing. Yeah.
And then we buy them.
Hi, Ryan.
Hi, Dave. We've got a hell of a show tonight. So we actually have a big chunkin' long interview. So and very good and fascinating. You guys are going to get a big kick out of it. So we're going to just sort of get to that, but we'll do our what's new in props this week first. What's new in props?
I'm going to make getting to this easy because I honestly have like.
Have we done too many episodes this season? I think
we have achieved the point where we are now doing more episodes than I am buying props, which is a very impressive.
I didn't think that was possible, man.
Yeah, who knew that even could exist? But we've lapped my prop buying in the sense of nothing really going on. Will say this. I continue to kind of go through closets and find things. And I forgot I had this.
What's new in Dave's closet?
What's new in Dave's closet? Yeah, exactly. I did find a really cool set, or not a set, a framed, set of like a blueprint of an original blueprint of the Millennium Falcon from Empire, I believe.
Oh, neat!
That I framed.
Original.
It's very very cool.
Okay.
Yeah,
copy,
I mean, I guess it's a blueprint copy in the sense of it's. I don't think it's hand.
But it's not a photostat or something.
It's not a photo of. Yeah, it's not a Xerox of it. But it's very very cool. But I definitely think I'll be dropping that off at one of the auction houses very soon. Yeah, it was like, oh right, I have this. Yeah, it's not making the wall. That's become my new sort of. I don't know, or maybe it's not new, but my new. Mantra is like, does it make the wall? Like, does it make the display? Does it make the wall?
And that's what I do too, Dave. I mean, I will not bid on something in auction if it's not going to go on display. And that's just, it's how I've kept myself honest and married, frankly.
I have just too much, especially when it gets into like some of the prop art. I also have too much of that.
Yes.
And this is just,
and there's a temptation because all that stuff is great.
This is a great piece. This is a gorgeous piece. I know why I bought it. I remember buying it. I love the Millennium Falcon, and in some ways it was a weird placeholder for like an X-Wing that I didn't have at the time. You know what I mean? Like anything to be one step closer to like a ship, but I can live without it. So I found that. And then the other thing I found was from the Getty, the Clone Wars, the short cartoons that were done by the Samurai Jack guy, Getty.
Gendy Tarkovsky. Yeah.
What you said.
Yeah.
I have a bunch of like one of one cells from those things.
Oh, those will be
and those are gorgeous looking. But I found like 7 of them and sets of drawings, some really cool ones with like General Grievous. I mean, they're not characters I love, and the sort of the Hammerhead Jedi, I'm sure he has a name and whatever. They're really good looking. If anyone's interested, you give me a yell, but I'm definitely going to be distributing those to the various auction houses as well.
That's great.
So I found all that, more to get rid of. Yeah,
I'd rather a Samurai Jack sell myself. I freaking love that show. Did you ever watch Samurai Jack?
I really like Samurai Jack. Obviously, it was a little, I hope I'm not saying anything out of turn. As a Ronin fan, Frank Miller's Ronin, it definitely was heavily influenced by Miller's Ronin, whether that was ever admitted to or not. But I, as someone who was not particularly into any of the Star Wars animated stuff, I thought those Clone Wars shorts and his animation style, the design, the look, the feel, those stories was just incredible. And for me, that was the pinnacle of any of the later animation stuff. I actually don't really care for any of the more sort of like CGI animated ones. I really love the way his stuff looks. So anyway, a what's new in props that I'm going to get rid of, sort of. So
also, I would say if anybody hasn't seen it, it's available. I don't know where you watch this, sort of at its source, but I found it on the digital store because I am a fan of his and love his aesthetic. Primal, which is his dialogue free story about like this essentially, guy from the Neanderthal era, but like sort of in a land of the lost where dinosaurs are still roaming
didn't know
around.
this even
And
existed.
they're like short, they're like, I don't know, 12 minutes each episode, but it's dialogue free because it happens in a time before human speech.
Right.
And it's like him trying to like him and the Tyrannosaurus Rex showing down over a dinosaur, over like a deer carcass that they fight over, and it starts this feud between them, and it grows and grows, and it gets totally out of control. And they're just episodes,
I'll
these
check
little
that out.
short films.
It's
but
funny
really
you
cool.
mentioned no dialogue, because I think something that will shock people if you've never watched his Clone Wars cartoons is same thing, very little dialogue. There are huge sections of just animation, and I think that is obviously part of his aesthetic as well.
Samurai Jack,
but
obviously.
but yeah, just really, really great. So check that all out, and let me know if you're interested, if you're looking for any of those animation cells for sale. So yeah.
There you go.
Soon. Yeah. How about you? What's new in props?
I had an exciting.
What did you find in your closet?
Well, this is what's new in Ryan's mailbox. More really Bart's mailbox, because he's manning our social media, and this came into him. I don't want to give away the listener because he didn't say whether it was okay to say on the air, so I'm not going to sell him out. But a very nice and enterprising listener wrote and said, "I was the runner up on the Hocus Pocus book. I was in a friend's wedding having group pictures taken and had finished just in time to bid while in a vehicle going back towards the venue. I had a friend text me 5 lots away, 3 lots away, because I couldn't look at my phone and then also smile for photos. I wanted to bid once more, but felt it was getting into the territory of overpaying, so I stopped. It hurts to hear that my half bid was my downfall. Sorry, cut bid shows weakness, everybody. But very pleased with the things I've gotten since then. I will say the best news of this, I screen matched it, and I don't mind sharing that information with you. It's when the 3 witches are being hung in the flashback scene. Wait for the lightning strike and you'll see it. That's amazing. I haven't verified this, but thank you, anonymous listener. That is this is great. A screen match is just falling out of the sky.
Allow me to say thank you, anonymous listener, and fuck you. Ryan, has there ever been a prop that you haven't bought that 3 weeks later is screen matched for you by just like divine
Somebody
providence?
else?
Yeah, but like literally, you buy things unscreen matched, and then they are screen matched within minutes of them showing up at your house. This is like the 4th thing in a row. I feel like it is insane. Yeah.
I mean, Dave, when you put good karma into the universe, good karma comes back your way. This is just my vibe. This is my thing, and I don't buy a lot of props, so those I do
are all screen matched. It's literally every fucking thing you buy.
It's the most interesting man in the world, I don't always screen match my props, but they do get screen matched for me.
My props, but they get screen matched after I own them, and the price goes up. It's insane. My stuff gets screen matched a la, oh, we screen matched it. It's not in the movie. It's a fake. That's the screen matching that goes on my shit. We can't put that in auction. Just throw it in the garbage.
We're being sued for selling this. So
you're screen matching just piece after piece after piece.
Yeah.
There is no God. That's where I want. That's the title of this episode. There's no God.
Thank you, listener. And if you do hear this episode and we can give you proper credit, please write in. We'll do so. I just wanted to protect your identity in case whoever you were in that vehicle with didn't know that you were
the wedding
on
party.
Something
I want to
very
get the groom and the bride very sad. Yeah. Wait, you were looking at your phone? Yeah.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Congratulations. Way to go.
Thanks, Dave. Ryan 10. We have a very exciting episode tonight. The segue into this is actually that very book is being packed up to be sent off to the great Chris Barton.
As we
speak. It is actually back in packing peanuts because I'm going to see him next week, and I'm going to have him make a display for it. And the idea is basically we have a media room, and I usually have this big honkin' Taschen book that sits right on the media cabinet with all the.
I think you told the audience where it was going. I think we did that.
And so Arnold is moving out. The Arnold Taschen book is moving out, and this thing is moving in. We're going to do it flat with like a UV protected acrylic display case. So it kind of sits there like basically as if we had this old expensive book that we took care of and put in there. And I'm going to have him do a little bit of a float underneath it. So just to hold it up a couple centimeters off. So it it looks like it's kind of levitating in the case, so you can't see what's happening.
Levitating flat or levitating if you
flat?
will,
Yeah, because it has to sit flat because the sound bar is there, so
Gotcha.
it has to keep very low profile. But that's the basic idea. Of course, I'll send photos and update everybody when I get it. But we've been meaning to talk to Chris for a really long time and on this show, and we're going to bring him on and talk about his career and everything.
I think one thing that's really amazing is the fact that with no offense to any of the people doing some really great work here in the United States who we've had on the show, guys like Tom Speen and whatnot, Chris Barton does this work, this display work, this restoration work, and does it having had this incredible 20 plus year career in the industry where he has worked everywhere from Henson to Potter and whatnot.
Yeah.
And it's just really impressive that this is this is what he's doing now. And it's just a really amazing story. And so he comes to the stuff having worked on it, which I think is a really unique perspective. And I've been dying to meet him and talk to him for a while and been very jealous of many of your displays. So,
So we're going to bring him on. We're going to talk about his career. He worked as a creature effects artist. He worked at the Henson shop forever. He worked in animatronics, and he kind of, made his way through the industry, learning all these different it's multimedia, right? You work in animatronics, you work in creatures, you worked in, I'm sure he could, restore a car if you needed to at this point. So we'll kind of walk through his career, and then we'll talk about his particular and artistic approach to displays. So, without further ado, let us bring on the great Chris Barton. So welcome, Chris. This is an interview that I've wanted to do for a long time. I think we instead of it just being like, oh, let's talk to Chris Barton, we finally found a way into it. I think something that we specifically want to talk about, which you're uniquely suited, equipped, and trained to do, which is displays and mannequins, and specifically mannequins and stuff like that. But
I'm not gonna lie, Chris, I have no real interest in talking to you. I'm going to spend the next hour of our time trying to lure you to move to the United States. That's what that's my goal, to get you to Los Angeles, preferably about 20 minutes from where I live. And you come and we just do mannequins and displays for the rest of our lives together, and we live happily ever after.
Well, I'll get my people to talk to your people, Dave, then we'll take it from there.
Very good. Yeah, I mean, I've said...
It's so hot and sunny here in LA today. Oh my God, I'm looking out my window and it's just gorgeous.
Oh, the sun again in my eyes.
Chris, do you want to hop in the pool, Chris? Is my way of saying I am very, very jealous of the work you've done for Ryan. So I'll start with that.
That's very kind of you. And thanks for inviting me onto the podcast. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you. Chris is a listener. He often texts me and says, "Oh, good episode," or "That was interesting." And it's always nice to know people that we talk to regularly in this hobby, whether about the podcast or about stuff or whatever, are listening. So that's always nice. Dave brings up a good point, and I think I said something to the effect of this on the other side of this interview. But I feel like Chris is sort of a unicorn because he is a wonderful artist, and he's super reliable and delivers things on time, and the prices are not astronomical. He sort of does it all, but he also has all the mastery of all the tools of the trade that you would want. Like if you have a Muppet head that you need fixed, or if you have, in my case, a very old resin blaster that cracked into shipping towards you, he can sort of adjust it and display it. And I think this is the thing that, and I've said this to Brandon, I just think this is the thing that they're missing in LA. And I realize that there aren't a million Chris's walking around, and maybe what they need is they need 3 people that together form sort of one Chris Barton. But I think this is the wonderful thing that that we have out here in the UK. And I say this at my own expense, because I realized that after this, Chris will become much busier and possibly have less time to do my stuff. So get in line, people.
Most
behind
likely.
me. Yeah.
But Chris,
I have the Ryan 10 code though with Chris, which just gets me things done 10 days earlier. It's not a discount.
Dave's already sent me the Dave 20.
The Dave 20 is so good. It's so good. It's come to the flight to LA. No, Chris, what I was gonna ask, just to sort of jump in, and I think part of this, which is sort of interesting, and maybe this is the way the industry is, by the way, in general these days. Because first of all, I think one of the things that's very interesting is you have an industry background. So let's just start with that as number one. Tell our listeners sort of your background, because obviously one did not set out to go, one day I'm going to make displays for Ryan. You actually wanted to be in the film industry and were. Yeah. So let's start with that.
Yeah. Well, I was trained as a graphic designer. And I did graphic art. It's called visualizing back in the day, where you'd use magic marker felt tip pens to do mock-ups of brochures or whatever for print and the like. And
so were you working for like ad companies? Like were you doing that kind of stuff?
I worked for various companies, eventually ended up in advertising agencies. Yeah. I also did finished artwork as well, which this is before desktop publishing as it was known at the time. I left the industry just before computers really arrived. So cut and paste was literally cutting with a scalpel and pasting something into its place. It was that long ago, as it were. But I'd always wanted to work in the film industry. So one day I just sent a letter to Jim Henson's Creature Shop.
Oh, wow.
Could I have a job? And that was it. And long story short, 2 years later, I got the opportunity to work on Storyteller, which was the John Hurt TV show.
And did they hire you initially because of your graphic design work, or they simply knew you were an artist and a painter and felt like these skills would be applicable in the world?
Yeah, funnily enough, I didn't do any art or painting at that time, really.
Okay.
But what I quickly realised, I'd need to have some sort of portfolio to take to Henson's or whoever. So I took some time to make stuff at home, little projects and the like, that I could take along in a big suitcase to the interview and sort of show them my wares, as it were. And they seemed...
Do you remember, like, was there a favorite piece that you liked that you made? Like, what kind of were you making puppets, or were you making just little pieces of things?
Yeah, I made a hand puppet. I made like an animatronic monster head.
Oh wow!
We had with a friend we wrote a little script, so there was a reason to make these things rather than just trying to conjure them out of thin air. And but idly, we've been talking about how marionettes. I used to be a big fan of Jerry Anderson and Thunderbirds and stuff like that. That was my childhood. And of course, marionettes can't walk very well. They just float across the sets or whatever. So I came up with an idea of an inverted marionette that the legs would be controlled from underneath under the set using lines, as it were, and it would walk along, which had limited use, but was an interesting concept. And that was one of the things that they remembered me for at the interview. So I nearly didn't take it, and I nearly didn't show it to them, and it became the thing I was remembered for with regards to who should we get in for this next job as and when it comes along. And as I say, that was Storyteller. And I started as a trainee.
Wow. So I want to almost back a little bit up further, which is, were you always like a tinkerer? Because like, it's one thing to be an artist. I know a lot of graphic designers and whatnot. I know a lot of painters, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure anybody that built their own animatronic head, or inverted walking puppet. I mean, I'm just simply saying, like, where did those skills come from? Or they just kind of, that was you kind of in there?
They're inbuilt.
They're inbuilt. Okay.
I just found I could do this stuff.
Okay. Wow. This is
not necessarily well, Dave.
You did it, but you did it.
But to some degree, Yeah.
When I read about, and again, I'm talking purely about reading, but when I read about the early days of like what became ILM, and I read about like the way Henson put his early shop together, and by the way, it sounds like even the later shops, what's so fascinating is you had these people from all different walks of life, oftentimes with a whole bunch of different skills, as opposed to somebody who like goes to college and like learns to make only eyes or something, or animatronic ears, you know what I mean? And then is very good at ears, but doesn't know how to do anything else. And you get, and when I think about the early days of like Lucasfilm, like all these guys who could do a little bit of everything, and therefore these jack of all trades. I don't know. It's the
That'd be a great Muppet skit, by the way, Dave. Is the I only do eyes, but all with the Muppets, and like Kermit is Deckard, and Fozzie
they never.
is Batty.
I guess the next Muppet show, they never. I'm not sure they ever did their Blade Runner parody.
Who's Chew in that? Is that Bunsen? Is it? Is it just Bunsen and Beaker?
No, it doesn't have to be Gonzo. Don't you want Gonzo going like, I only do eyes with the chickens running around? I don't know.
Very good.
But
we should work on this.
I guess I'm sort of fascinated by just the fact that you kind of, and again, I don't mean to say walked right in, but that's fantastic. And
yeah, I mean, it was a long wait. Then you never know until you get the phone call, I mean, and then sure enough, it's can you start tomorrow almost, and then you turn up with the stuff and they say, sit over there and make one of these for us, please.
And was that it? Were you in, or was it a series of freelance jobs with them? How did it go from there with Henson?
Once you become a known quantity, as it were, then you tend to roll on to the next job as and when it comes along as a known crew. Then, like all the shops like that, they have a roster of talent that they use, and you just join that list, as it were. So yeah, it's getting your foot in the door. Once you've got your foot in, as you probably know, once you've got your foot in the door in the film industry, it's not that difficult. You just have to prove that you can continue to do the work, as it were. Whereas getting your foot in the door can be very hard. And back in the day, of course, it was unionised as well. So there's a big union aspect to it as well. You can't get a job if you're not in the union. You can't join the union unless you've got a job, right. And this sort of catch-22 situation. But that said, it was, once I was there, what did I do after that? Oh, I did The Witches. That was my first.
I love The Witches.
Major feature film, the Nick Rogue one.
Yeah.
I truly love that adaptation.
Yeah,
I think it's
so
a really fun movie.
Scared the pants off of me.
What kind of stuff were you making? Like, did you have an area, like on a movie like that? Like, I don't know, how does the creature shop work? Did you have creatures you were doing, or specific things, or what was that?
Well, there were, as you know, the two boys get turned into mice. And a few of us was given select mice to do. So there's a large hand puppet mouse. There was a smaller mid-range mouse, and then a tiny mouse, all animatronic. And I was tasked with doing one of the smaller animatronic ones.
Oh, wow.
But obviously other people were doing the witch makeups, witch transformations, all under the same roof. It's, as you can imagine, it was an incredibly fertile, exciting place to be, just to see all these different talents working together in the same room.
Yeah, wow. Just the creative camaraderie just must have been amazing.
Literally in the same room. The Henson's Creature Shop was an old, not derelict, but it was an old British Post Office sorting office in Hampstead. So it was a huge hall, which was just laid out to benches and the like, and everybody worked together. So yeah, it was a really interesting place, as you might imagine.
And when you made something like a small animatronic mouse, is that something you would ever follow onto the set as well? Or was it more? Yeah, you did. Yeah. So you were responsible. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And Henson's being Henson's, understandably used their own professional puppeteers and the like.
Right.
But if you built it, you went on set with it to keep it alive, service it, repair it. And stuff always breaks.
Sure.
So you have to be there to fix it. But yeah, so that was quite a thing, particularly with Nick Rogue, as a director.
He was such a wild choice for that in a great way.
Yeah. And for me, the film's fallen off the radar a little bit, but I do hear people who think very kind, say very kind words about it.
I saw it a million times as a kid. I mean, it scared the hell out of me. The witches were so terrifying.
They did that.
I wasn't target audience, you see.
Yeah.
I guess so. Yeah. Sorry, Dave.
Oh, no, not at all. I was going to say they did a remake like 2 or 3 years ago on Max or something.
Zemeckis.
Was it Zemeckis? I didn't love it. What I was aware of was in a funny way, as a fan of the original, it felt like them making the remake got a lot of attention for the original in a good way. Like it was a nice sort of like, hey, this is kind of whatever, but there's this other one. How long did you stay at Henson? How long was your sort of time in the creature shop?
Probably about 7 or 8 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Something like that. I mean, on and off, I
of
mean,
course. Other things in between, yeah.
There'd be months when there was no work. The trouble working in animatronics, particularly in the UK, is that there are never that many animatronics, or certainly back in the day, never that many animatronic or monster creature films being made. Right. So there might be, the Pinewood might be stacked with work, but they'll all be costume dramas or contemporary pieces, not necessarily monster films.
Right.
Yeah.
So as a consequence, there were slim pickings, occasionally. So it was famine and feast, very much so at the time. But
do you have? Oh, I said, do you have a favorite project in there, or a favorite thing that you built for something in there, that just something that you loved, built the building of, or something that you got to really play with, something that you liked? Does anything jump out at you as a favorite?
Yeah, well, I was lucky enough to be asked to go onto the shooting crew for Muppet Christmas Carol.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Which was great, as you can imagine. I mean, who doesn't like the Muppets? It was a thrill to be sort of just in the presence of, these objects that mean so much to so many, myself included. And there was one particular shot at the end of the film. Actually, no, that's not Muppet Christmas Carol. I'm a bit behind that. I did Muppet Treasure Island.
Oh, okay.
After that.
Okay.
Then at the end of Muppet Treasure Island, they wanted Kermit to say a line of dialogue, brandish his sword, then jump off a rock and do somersaults down the beach, all in one shot.
Okay.
And CGI wasn't there, as it were, to do that. And I sort of put my hand up and said, well, I think I might be able to do something, but I'll give it a go. And it was just a thrill to build a Kermit the Frog.
Oh, wow.
So good.
I've forgotten the lady's name now, but all the Henson New York crew were over as well. So I was working with the very same people that made the Kermit puppets and the rest. So it was a lovely thing to be involved with. And it was just a large figure of Kermit, so big, that would do all the dialogue, would fold his arms and his legs would tuck up. And I mounted it on sort of a hand drill affair so it could be spun. And then the puppeteer just did the lines, and against, I think it was blue screen, and then it was dropped into the background. But that was a thrill, as you might well imagine.
Wow.
To do a Kermit, it's
that's great,
a happy memory. That was probably one of the last things I did for Henson's, actually.
Yeah, and you did well, it's not Muppets, which are among my favorites, but you did one of my very childhood favorites, which you made Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
But that was through the Creature Shop, right? That was Henson Creature Shop?
Yeah, that was.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. That's what I was trying to remember that. Yeah.
And the big thing then was the Hensons were pioneering their computer control systems.
For the faces, right? That was a huge development at the time.
Yeah. And the puppeteers wore these face rigs with sensors on them, so that as they spoke the dialogue themselves, the turtle head would echo what they were saying. Which was great, but of course, if an actor fluffed his lines and then going like that, the puppet would as well. He who lives by the computer control system dies by the computer control system.
Yeah,
but that was a heavy duty shoot. There were 4 principal performers, 4 stuntmen. They had a change of costumes for them. After the morning shoot at lunchtime, they would change out of their sodden costumes into fresh costumes.
Okay.
So that's already 16, and then those will go into rotation that night for cleaning, patch up, and drying, and the next set will be set up for them. So there were like 40 odd suits.
Wow, they basically were every one of them handmade.
Yes, wow. Yeah. And I was on the night shift, as it were, repairing any damage or servicing stuff from the day's shooting.
Oh, wow. So that's funny. They had to run a late shift to do the night work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fabulous.
For the suits as well as the animatronics. Yeah. It was, I wouldn't say it's hard work. You're not at the coal face, but you know what I mean. It's busy times. But yeah, that was in North Carolina. That was at the old Dino De Laurentiis studio.
Wow. Okay.
In Wilmington. I think it's still there. But they had the remains of the giant robot King Kong from the Rick Baker King Kong film lying in the back lot. And
that's kind of fun to see. As it
away, you know, holy shit, you know, it's one of those sorts of thing, lifting up tarpaulins and stuff. Yeah, it was. If you remember that, it was the robot that's supposed to walk around everywhere and do all manner of amazing stunts, but I think in the film,
I think it just moved its
arm
once or twice. Yeah, I don't think it walked a lot. Kind of went maybe
but it was a great, amazing thing to look at. You know.
Yeah, wonderful and giant. Yeah. Well, that must have been kind of wild too, working the night shift in like living in a hotel in North Carolina, kind of
travel,
having your days free or sleeping during the day, and sort of a funny sort of.
Yeah, it was good. But that said, we missed out entirely on the sort of the I wouldn't say glamour of the production, but you're not involved with the day-to-day aspect of making the film.
Right.
So, but hey, it was fun to be out there. I think we were out there for the duration of the shoot, which I think was about 7 or 8 weeks.
Oh, wow. Then. That's a long one.
Yeah. And of course they did Turtles 2, which was much the same thing, but done a couple of years later. I was involved to some degree.
And you were in that too?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Secret of the Ooze.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. Yeah,
I know you mentioned the people who made the Kermit puppet, and obviously if you worked on like Treasure Island, you would have dealt with like was it Brian Henson, I believe, Jim's son. Were like some of like the other, like, did you ever get to interact with like the Frank Oz's or any of the other kind of like Muppet guys? Were they? Did they come into the creature like?
Yeah. Okay. Yes, it was thrilling. Yeah, it was thrilling. Like you know Dave Goltz, who, et cetera, et cetera. Steve Whitmire at that time was sadly, I think Jim Henson passed away by the time we did the films.
Yeah,
but so Steve Whitmire was doing was Kermit and all the rest of it. So no, it was an absolute blast.
Oh, that's great.
I mean, they're beyond stars, aren't they? You know what I mean? The Muppets. I mean, they're another level. It's like Mickey Mouse. I mean,
icons.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, they're icons. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Very cool.
Well, so Chris, where did you, I mean, I know eventually you go to work for George Lucas, but where do you go from Henson? I mean, I also know Fifth Element was in there. Did you become more freelance or what was?
Yeah. I mean, I think there was just a gap in work at Henson's, and I'd on Treasure Island. I was talking to the special effects guys, and they'd done the effects for Leon, the Professional.
Oh yeah,
Besson assassin.
Yeah, okay, so
what a great movie that is.
Yes.
And they were saying, "Oh yeah, we're sort of looking at this next thing that Luc Besson's doing," and I'm like, "Really? What's that?" Because it's a science fiction film, and I was like, "Holy crap! I really want to get involved with that." So, and that was the start of. I didn't get in there early, but knew of it sufficiently early that it was something I could very much work towards getting onto. So yeah, eventually that came to fruition. A guy called Nick Dudman, quite a famous makeup artist in the UK, he did the Joker makeup for Jack Nicholson in Batman.
Gotcha.
He took supervision of the creatures for it, the makeup effects, and he brought me on as the sort of supervising animatronics guy.
Is there kind of a little bit of a line from some of the work that you did doing the Turtles to like the Mangalores in terms of the animatronics and that kind of stuff? Is there?
Yes, very much.
Yeah, like an evolution there kind of a thing?
Yeah, very much. Yeah. Well, as you learn by previous approaches what's good and what's bad, So yeah, the Mangalores very much owed a lot to the Turtles in that respect. All the servos in Turtles, all the motors are in the shell. And for the Mangalores, they're all in that sort of strange little compact backpack they wear, which we asked if we could have. It wasn't part of the original design. We said, look, if we keep all the motors out of the heads can be as small as we can make them then. But that means we'll have to put them somewhere else. So can we have some sort, I think we call them battle packs. It was just part of their...
Sure, I have a battle pack.
Yeah, you do.
I do. I wear it on the tube every day. You just never know what you're going to run into.
Well, quite.
Well, it also it allows Ryan's head to be smaller than we initially thought it was going to have to be. The original design of Ryan, the head was fucking giant. It was really silly looking. Yeah.
You wouldn't see all the props.
Ryan honestly looks very human. I mean, I think we did a hell of a job, if I may say. Yeah.
Thank you.
It is a remarkable effect, isn't it? Yeah, I know. It's something else.
I'm state of the art.
But So yeah, So Fifth Element owed a
yeah.
lot to the Muppets, not Muppets, the
Turtles. Yeah.
Well, the Henson world. Yeah, the Henson world you're refining and building, and
And of course, most of the guys that were on Fifth Element have worked at Henson's as well. You know, I mean, as always, it's a relatively small group of people, Paul, and everybody works.
Well, where else do you learn how to do that stuff, right?
Well, quite, yeah. You could argue on films that aren't Henson films that they are, because everybody that works at Henson's went on to work on that other film. You know what I mean? It's just one pool, in effect, that moves around.
Sure.
Someone once explained to me they were deciding between sort of makeup creature teams on a movie that I was sort of doing rewrites on. They were deciding between two of the big names. And I was like, oh, wow, that's interesting. So either one guy will bring his team or the other guy will bring his team. And someone turned to me and went, it's the same team. You hire the guy, and then they both pull from the same list. They don't keep they don't have a studio full of people. They have a pad of paper with names on it, and it's going to be the same people, just a different head guy. Yeah,
very good.
Yeah, there'll be two or three core people, but other than that,
yes,
absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
An early lesson learned.
Yeah, I mean, one of the big highlights of my time at Henson's, I was on Flintstones.
Oh, okay.
Which was shot at Universal Studios, and that was like, well, here I am in Hollywood.
In Hollywood, yeah.
I mean,
great.
That was a huge thrill. So yeah, it was that was quite not my favorite film, but a very enjoyable experience.
Was that on the Universal backlot? Was that at Universal Studio? They just built it in one?
No, the actual outdoor. So it was a quarry up in the valley, a big disused gravel quarry. But all the interiors were done at Universal. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So it was a fun time.
Throughout the year, Prop Store hosts a number of exclusive studio-sponsored auctions where you can get authentic props and costumes directly from your favorite films and television series. Just announced, Prop Store, in association with the Alcon Television Group, will be hosting The Expanse final online auction that will include 300-plus lots from seasons 1 through 6 of the hit science fiction television series.
Have you ever seen The Expanse?
No.
I have not seen it. I've heard okay things. I own nothing from it. I know people like it, but here's what I'm going to say. I want people to buy and bid like crazy on these Expanse items so that the Alcon people go, oh my God, Prop Store did so well with The Expanse. We need to finally sell all our Blade Runner 2049 stuff.
Yes.
Like, we should just give it to Prop Store. So whether you've seen The Expanse or not, bid on such items as James Holden's stunt MCRN light armor with light up boots. Doesn't that sound amazing?
Mm-hmm.
Also, Joseph Miller's Thomas Jane. Oh, Thomas Jane's in it. Signature hero hat. You know that hat he wears? This is the hat.
It's signature.
It's a signature.
Amos Burton's Wes
Wait,
Chatham.
Is Amos Burton played by Wes Chatham?
And he is. He is. And his season 3 Bloody Rockinate coveralls, light up boots, and medical container and backpack are in this auction.
Wait, are those the bloody ones or the regular ones?
The bloody ones, Dave.
Oh my God, the bloody ones. Oh, that would look so great with Thomas Jane's signature hat.
Each item comes with a custom certificate of authenticity signed by Prop Stores and series executive producer Broderick Johnson.
If you've always wanted to own an authentic piece of The Expanse and hope that maybe someday they'll sell some Blade Runner stuff, this is your final chance. Go to propstore.com/theexpanse, propstore.com/theexpanse to see an auction preview, and make sure to follow The Expanseverse, that's in quotes, The Expanseverse, on Instagram and X, Twitter, for updates, announcements, and all things The Expanse. The specific auction dates will be announced later this month.
And don't forget, as season 7 of The Stuff Dreams Are Made Of is winding down, your time to use your exclusive Dave10 code for a 10% discount on buy now items from propstore.com is coming to an end. Dave's code expires on as do his hopes and chances.
As does Dave on May 31st, 2024.
So make your buy now purchase today. Well, it's in Dave's contract that we can't have a podcast without talking about Star Wars. So tell us about your time with Mr. Lucas and on Star Wars.
Well, what do you want to know?
Well, everything.
Well,
I mean,
first,
how did
how? How does it?
Yeah,
How does
how
it
did that
happen,
job-
or is it more of the same? Like basically, they were putting together a movie, and obviously you heard about it and wanted on, or they came to you, or
Well, I was on a film called Mortal Kombat 2: Annihilation.
Great.
Yeah, not one of the high points on my list of jobs. Nonetheless,
and yet arguably
glad of the work. Don't get me wrong.
The best of the Mortal Kombat movies, arguably.
Well, thank you for that. But we were shooting that at Leavesden Studios, which was at that point genuinely just a bare bones factory. Which I think the year before or 2 years before, one of the Bond films couldn't get Pinewood. And they were looking around for studio space, and they ended up going to Leavesden.
GoldenEye, yeah,
and just making a very rough and ready makeshift studio. Really, there were no sound stages, but it was partitioned, and all the rest of it. And of course, once GoldenEye left, it still sort of functioned in this crude form as a studio. And indeed, Mortal Kombat went in there. And whilst we were out in Thailand shooting that, we became aware that Star Wars was thinking of going into Leavesden as well. And as with all these things, a lot of the people that were currently at Leavesden at Mortal Kombat seem to sort of just merge into Star Wars. But probably by design. Right. Nonetheless, a lot of the crew on Mortal Kombat 2 went on to work on Star Wars, prop department, etc. So
it's sort of like squatter. It's like being a squatter. You just sort of you were there on the land, and eventually
squatters' rights.
Yeah.
I'm now in the Star Wars movie.
And that came back from Thailand and started on that. Yeah.
Leavesden, GoldenEye was the very first thing to film at Leavesden as a proper film, like using it as a studio space or a stage space.
Yeah, and as you know, it's a massive complex and dirty and dusty and derelict in places. You know, ceilings were coming down in offices that weren't used. It was really on its last legs in many respects. But, sorry.
Yeah, and now it's like the best, most modern studio in.
They put crazy money into it.
Yeah,
once Harry Potter came in, I
did about 4 or 5 Harry Potters, so I know Leavesden. Well, I worked at Leavesden more than anywhere else, so I don't think I'd recognise it now if I went there.
It's why. I mean, even since I started, 3.5 years ago, it's wildly changed with double the footprint of backlot and stages going up all the time. I mean, they're really making it the place to be here in
it looks like a proper studio, whereas before it was just like a building that was
converted,
being used as a studio, as it were. But,
it started its life as it's where they built all the Halifaxes. It was a Rolls-Royce aircraft factory, and they built all the Halifaxes for World War II out there. So it was it's up on a hill, it's in a runway and that's
significant because
clear in every direction,
and a runway there ready to build anything on.
So
and quite a few of the Star Wars sets were out on the runway. So in the open air and the like. But I mean, it was a nice project to work on, but it was a lot. There's a lot of economy on Star Wars, more than I expecting. Not that I was expecting to lavish money on everything, but there was
because this is Phantom Menace we're talking about. We're talking about the
it was clearly being done for a price.
Yes,
if you know what I mean, which was a bit of a surprise.
That was kind of. They had done the Young Indiana Jones Chronicle or whatever it was called, right? Wasn't that what it's called? Young Indiana Jones Chronicle. And the two things that kind of came out of that, number one was, I guess, how do we kind of make these digital sets work? How do we really start to kind of use the CGI so that we're not having to go anywhere? And then also, I think that was Rick McCullum's background, which was sort of small budget filmmaking, and this idea that we're going to do big things for small prices, and they kind of brought that over to Star Wars. And the part that I'm always really shocked by, and we've talked a little bit about this on the show, was there were like Star Wars props and items, like a C-3PO that was used in the original Star Wars, that they, instead of building another one, pulled one, I guess, out of the archives or out of some kind of a room, and then used it in Watto's junk shop. And you just kind of go, wait, what? Why would you ever do that? but I guess when you think about budget, I guess it makes sense.
Oh yeah. There was a memorable day at the start of the production when we were just told that this shipment had arrived from the Lucasfilm archives, and we literally, some forklift trucks just dropped off these large cases, and there was 2 R2D2s, one of which was the original Kenny Baker one.
Oh wow!
With all the little handholds inside it
Yep.
for Kenny to hold on to, and an original C-3PO suit. I'm not sure what film it was from, and these were just in bits, taken care of, but there they were. And Chewbacca's face and stuff like that, which wasn't in good shape, but they brought it over for us to have a look at and all the rest of it. And that was a very strange moment too.
Wow.
It's just wild. Yeah.
What's this doing? You pinch yourself under those circumstances, as it were.
Dave is presently trying to time travel to Watford, circa 1998.
I have to intercept it, I think, at the airport.
Very
time
good.
travel. Yeah.
And of course, we didn't know how to put a C-3PO suit on. So you then have to sit down and just figure out how this thing goes together.
Oh, they didn't say, because they had one of, there's a I think Anthony Daniels sold one in the auction. There's a Xerox set of instructions. I guess they didn't send the instructions.
We didn't see that. We didn't see that. Not that it's difficult to work out.
No, of course.
Nonetheless, you have to go, oh, okay. So
that's why they kept rehiring him, Dave, because he had the instruction manual. They had no choice.
Yeah. As it happened, our office runner had the same build as Anthony Daniels, so he
put it on him,
and he went on to wear the suit in the movie. So when you see, it was repainted as other droids, as it were, for use in the film rather than being C-3PO per se. But yeah, good old John had a chance to. That's his moment of fame.
What did you build specifically for that film? Is there a favorite thing that you made? I'm sure there were creatures everywhere.
Yeah, not really. I built Yoda.
Oh wow.
There you go.
Yeah. Didn't really want to. It's just a big thing to build a Yoda, isn't it?
Are you building an actual Yoda puppet that he would operate? Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. That Frank Oz would operate. Yeah. And it was of course younger, or it was supposed to be somewhat younger than he appears in New Hope or rather Empire Strikes Back, and all the rest of it. So yeah, that was a process. And silicon rubber was very much a big thing at the time because it's such a better, more expressive material than foam rubber. And we took the decision to make Yoda out of silicon. And I think in hindsight, that was probably a mistake. I think we should have made him out of foam rubber.
To keep it looking more the same? Is that the
but
why?
That's only in hindsight, years later. I mean, if this proof is needed of this, he's not in the film anymore, and they've taken him out and he's CGI.
Right.
So, that's the way. And I'm not convinced sometimes that CGI is necessarily any better in some occasions. But there you go. Yeah.
Right.
But no, so yeah, for my sins, I worked on Yoda, which was it was fun, and what a great thing to do and meet Frank Oz and be under the sets with him, helping all the other puppeteers and doing all that stuff with Yoda was a thrill.
But in some way, you must have felt like you were coming into Jim Henson's shop and building Kermit, right? It's like how do you build Yoda after Stuart Freeburg, just because it's such a famous character, right?
Well, quite, there's a lot of baggage.
Yeah.
With that, and thankfully, I didn't have to sculpt it. That was done by one of the most talented sculptors in British film effects, Garrick Pollard. He was given the job of sculpting Yoda, and I think that was probably the toughest one, because that obviously doesn't really matter what's inside it mechanically. Really, it is how it looks.
The look,
so but yeah, that was what an interesting side note to to Star Wars is the Nemoidians were going to be CGI. And 4 weeks before principal photography or thereabouts, they decided they couldn't afford it. And they just turned to us and said, can you do us some Nemoidians, please? You've got 4 or 5 weeks.
And they had the design of what they were already, so you were at least able to kind of go, it has to be this. Or
really, they were sort of horsey-faced things. They were very thin. And you couldn't have a performer wearing a costume. And we got to this point where we said, well, what do they look like? So George Lucas came up to the office, and there's a big, at the time, I think it was the only Star Wars reference book around called The Chronicle. Quite a large book with a thick cardboard cover. And he just leafed through it, and he just went, there, they look like them. Okay, so that was it. That was the decision.
So what did he find? Just like an unused drawing that was in there or something? Yeah,
I can't tell you, Dave. Wow. It's a secret. No, what it was. There's two aliens in spacesuits chatting in the corner of the cantina.
Gotcha.
They've got green faces. That's what he pointed at, and that was the sort of where we started with the Nemoidians. That was the leaping off point for what, again, Gary Pollard sculpted those as well.
Oh, wow. Very quickly.
Very quickly. That's why he's not only is he good in terms of finish, but also design, but also he's fast. Yeah. Until he did all the variants. I think there's other people involved with some of the other variants as well, but nonetheless, he was leading that. But because we didn't have much time, we got in touch with the producers of Fifth Element, and we had the backpacks of the Mangalores off them, and we repurposed them.
Oh my gosh! Oh, that's hilarious.
The Nemoidian costumes, which is why the Nemoidians have humps. They've got a sort of rather hump.
That's it. They have a built-in backpack. Yeah,
that's
right. Human backpack.
And it's exactly the same backpacks as we used on Fifth Element.
I love it.
I do love that kind of problem solving. I mean, that's I find that very enjoyable.
I mean, if they said no, you can't. If you can't have them, then we'd have just have to work every hour doing the same thing again. But as luck would have it, we were able to get that pre-existing stuff. It was just literally snipped off at the neck, all the cables, and just given to us. But that was all we needed.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
so,
wow.
and of course they were worn by performers, and the rest, as we say, is history. I mean, that's what happened. So it was fun working on Phantom Menace, but I'd always wanted to work on a big science fiction movie, and of course Fifth Element got there first.
Right.
Yeah.
So that had everything. In spades, as it were. So I wouldn't say Star Wars was a disappointment, but it became another science fiction film in a strange way, as it were.
Sure.
But, I think people not in the industry, I feel like we all went through this in some version of it with our own families. I remember like early Thanksgivings and whatnot, where they don't quite understand at some point it is just a job. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Yeah. It's I know George Lucas was there in my office today, but basically he was telling me I've got a lot of work these next 3 weeks. Like, was like, this is what happens. It's like your boss dumping something on you. Yes, it is George Lucas. It is a Star Wars movie, but it's work. I mean,
I might know something about that in my present existence.
Yeah, and
don't
of course,
you just walk on sunshine all the time, Ryan? Isn't it
quite. George is just a bloke. He's just a man. There's no airs or graces. He just comes in the office and does that and walks out. And okay, here we go. Let's get on to it, But it was a great fun and a great experience, obviously, and some fun stories to be had from it. But and of course, we were shooting in Tunisia, and everything got destroyed by storm in the desert. All the sets were destroyed, and all manner of it was chaos, absolute chaos. Which apparently happened on the first Star Wars.
Yeah, I think if the story is to be believed, he kind of went, well, that's a good sign. It happened.
I heard that said by by George Lucas.
You actually heard him say it? Wow.
Well, everyone's standing around, sort of scratching their heads, thinking, "What the hell?" All the production tents were flat. There was just nothing there. All the pod races, physical pod races, which were there, disappeared. There's one set left, as I believe it, and that was the chrome cockpit, chrome ramp and entry to the big chrome
the ship,
royal spaceship. That was unscathed. So that's what they shot on that day. And everybody else went like hell for leather, rebuilding everything, getting stuff ready for the next day's shoot. So it didn't really, amazingly, interrupt the production. But boy,
Lord,
one of those things.
So your second act, Chris, as artist, a multi-talented multimedia artist. What was the thinking, decision making that went into that?
Well, that came my way. I was on one of the Harry Potters, might have been Goblet of Fire, Can't remember. Either way, it was around that time, 2005, something like that. And my boss, Nick Dudman, again, who I worked on with Star Wars, he was in charge of Harry Potter creature effects. And he said, look, I'm going to the prop store. And I said, what's the prop store? And he said, oh, it's this place that you can buy and sell. They sell prop. There were no auctions back in the day.
Right.
And it was just those two guys. It was Tim and Stephen and a couple of others. And that was a really small setup at a farm just outside of the M25, much further, same place they are now.
Near Leavesden.
Yeah, quite. Yeah, not far from Leavesden at all. And Nick said, do you want to come with me? So I just went out there and met them, and it was cool, not an interesting place and all the rest of it. Nick did his business, whatever that was, I can't remember. But either way, they had a quick chat with me, and I said, yeah, I did the animatronics for this, or I did blah, blah, blah. And about a month later, I got a phone call from them saying, look, we've got one of the pigs from Babe, which Henson's did. And I did work on the pre-production for that. I didn't go on location. And they said it's got a body, but then the head is animatronic, but there's no head skin on the head. And it's a bit ropey, really. It's just been lying at the bottom of a box for years. Do you think you can do something with it? So I said, okay, yeah, well, I'll have a look. And to cut a long story short, I put them on a display base, cleaned the head up, so it looked presentable. And these things do look presentable when they're polished up, because they have brass eyelids, and of course, polish those up, and they look like gold, etc.
Sure.
And I put it on a computer control board, so you could press a button, and then all the motors would cycle through movements, as it were, so you could see everything working. And made something viable out of something which didn't look like anything, effectively.
I feel like, isn't there some...
That was the start of it. And after that,
you made something out of a pig's ear, isn't there some saying like that?
Yes,
yeah.
Yeah.
A pig's eye.
Not exactly a silk purse, but it was certainly more presentable than it had been before. And whilst it looks like the Terminator with no skin on the pig's head, as you might imagine.
I'm much more interested in that movie than in Babe, by the way. Terminator Pig.
Babe is so good. I love that movie.
It is. Yeah. George Miller.
Yes. Yeah. I was worked in the UK on that, and everything went out to Australia, and for many reasons I wasn't on the crew. But and that was the start of that relationship, really. And that must have been 2005. What's that? 19 years.
Yeah.
Now? How time flies.
Yeah.
And I carried on Harry Potter's, and then I just got a little bit disenchanted with the film industry. The last 4 or 5 years, the luster was wearing off a little bit, and I left and got a job in Formula One motor racing.
Really?
Yeah, like you do. Yes. Well, I live very close to Silverstone Racetrack, and there's a lot of motor racing industry around this area, not least what is now the Mercedes Formula One team. And they were Honda back in the, and they were advertising.
Back to art and graphics, or what? Or because there's no animatronics that I know of, or maybe there is.
Aerodynamic.
The drivers are all fake, Dave. I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah, they're all people. Yeah, it was models for the wind tunnel.
Oh wow!
So I did nearly 2 years there.
Really cool.
And then that was for Honda, and Honda famously walked away from Formula One.
Oh.
And a guy called Russ Braun bought the company for £1. And that company has later become, then he won the World Championship, and the company later became Mercedes. But more to the point, when Honda walked away, they laid 300 staff off, and I was one of them. And I had quite a healthy redundancy pay, and it enabled me to buy a workshop in the back garden, or the backyard, and set that up as a workshop from home. And that's where I've been ever since. And that's when I really did then start moving big time into helping out the prop store and indeed other clients as well.
Is it fun when through prop store or a client or whatever has something, I know you had a little bit of a connection to Babe, but has something you've ever really worked on ever looped back to you? You know what I mean? Like, has anyone ever brought you like a mouse from Witches or something where you're like, oh my God, I built this. Like this is my work, you know?
Not particularly. Props had a couple of Mangalores in, the mechanical ones. So that was fun to see them again.
To see old friends like that?
Yeah, almost old friends. Corny though that sounds, it takes you back when you see these things. You sort of smile, and there's been a couple of Harry Potter bits and pieces as well. It's also interesting because when as you both know, there's such a reverence the way these things are treated on set. I mean, a prop or any such thing, or costume even, when it's in the middle of filming, is priceless. It's and it is taken care of accordingly. But of course, once it's wrapped and been signed off, it's all of a sudden not worthless, but it's a shadow of its former self in terms of value to the film company. So it's very strange to see some of these things that you couldn't touch before,
right,
just being presented to you in a box, and you sort of go, look at that.
Yeah.
Fancy that, the key from the Mummy book, from the Mummy, or whatever it may be. It's it's a fun process, and I've done about 700-800 displays now.
Oh my God.
Projects. So the amount of stuff I've come across has been quite extraordinary. I don't
12% of those are in this office, Chris.
Yeah, you and a couple of others. Yes, there's a.
Oh, I was gonna say, do you have a personal philosophy, like when you're making a display, or is it really what the client wants, or are you trying to not push them in a direction, but do you have a way you like to do it? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's informed by what the client wants. Obviously, there's no point in doing something. Well, that's what I've done. Like, if you don't like it, well, I'm not going to do it. No, yeah, obviously, you try and follow the client's wishes, but you try and steer them in certain directions or whatever. I mean, not a case in point, but for instance, Ryan's got an Indiana Jones whip, and I made a display stand for that, but I made the support for it circular, so you can't see the support. The whip itself hides the support, which isn't something Ryan asked for. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, but you did want it so high with the base so big, and you go in there and try and give it a little bit extra, a little bit of something that makes it more discreet, as it were.
Yeah, and that's my favorite.
That's interesting as well. You've hit both nails. Then you've hit what the client wants, and you feel you've contributed a little bit extra yourself.
And that's one of my favorite things about the way Chris approaches these things is he really tries to make them invisible the way they would be in a museum, so that the pieces there, it's clearly on a stand, but you're not seeing this. You're seeing as little of the stand as possible, so it just feels like it's kind of floating in space.
That's what I've noticed. If I were to sort of the telltale mark of your work has very much been, even just the stuff behind Ryan, is they are displays. They clearly are displays. It's not magic, but you are doing a really great job to sort of not distract you with any part of the display and really let the object kind of shine.
Well, thanks, Dave. I mean, it's very kind of you to say that, but it's what the displays need, I think. I mean, the pulse rifle in the background there behind Ryan's it looks like it's just standing on its own.
Right.
A case in point, I suppose. But this is a stark contrast to back in the day when I first started doing mannequin displays. The novelty of having somebody who would do bespoke displays and get mannequins to get costumes to fit nicely on mannequins, which is what I started doing, really. But we had theme bases. So if someone had a Maximus Gladiator outfit, Russell Crowe, I did a base which was a black plinth but with sand and then rose petals on top of the sand and stuff like that. And there was a big splurge on those for a couple of years of doing mad themed bases, Terminators with their foot on a human skull and all this sort of stuff. And slowly but surely they've fallen out of favour, thank God. I mean, they've become... There's a lot of work to do those things, and now they're just plain black bases. But I think it's important the base doesn't dominate the piece, and I think a theme base can dominate the piece. Really.
Yeah, it's very funny. In my collecting of comic art, the original framing that I did for my comic art often had, and this is not a piece of comic art, that's just a personal frame thing, so I don't have a great example, but I can maybe try and put a couple up so people can see it. So some of the comic art I did early on would often have very elaborate mats, sometimes cutouts, sometimes color in the mat, maybe a colored frame and whatnot. And I did that for a number of years. And at some point, and they take up a lot of room because everything is bigger and whatever. And at some point, I moved away from that into just a very traditional, I guess what you would call museum framing, where it's a basically natural wood frame and it floats. There's no mat at all. It just floats. And it really is about the piece. And the same thing kind of has happened in my prop displaying, which is I have some early on pieces that do have sort of like, not theme bases, but thematic aspects to them. You know what I mean? Like I have an Ugnaught mask that's on a sort of like Ugnaught chest a little bit. And the chest is sort of fake. It's not a repro. It's sort of designed. And the work is lovely, but I think the honest answer is if I were to do it today, there would be no suggestion of the shirt. I'm just more interested in the mask. And I think I guess I have moved much more towards, again, what I call sort of museum displaying, which is what I think you do, whether you knew you were doing it or not. It's really very much like treating it the way like a museum would and should. That's again one of the things
making
I love
it look like a priceless artifact. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, you want these things to look nice.
Yes.
You know, and a lot of this is born, of course, from the prop store, who might have something. It just doesn't look that great just sitting on the desk, but put it on the stand and present it nicely. All of a sudden, its value is improved.
Yes.
By dint of the display.
A piece, laying on its side, even in a nice display, is very different from the piece wired up to a power thing so that the eyes go on or whatever it is. I mean, it is a huge difference. And by the way, I'll go one step further for our listeners. I had a piece years ago. I had pieces of a Battlestar Galactica costume that I wanted to get rid of. I wanted to sell it. And I actually made a display for it. I didn't go crazy, but I had a display made for it for the sale, because basically my helmet and my jacket, the helmet on a hanger and the jacket on a hanger and the helmet sitting on a table were fine looking. They were what they were, but all of a sudden when it was on basically, a waist up mannequin of a jacket with the helmet sort of floating on top of it, it looked so good. I almost thought about not selling it. It looked that good, but I do believe the sale was my number, just to get all right down to brass tacks, my number was improved by not just what I spent on the display, and then some, because it was an attractive piece for someone to bid on. And I do think that's a real piece of it. Yeah.
And a lot of the stuff I do with mannequins is tailor the mannequin to fit the costume as well. There's no secret to that, but it can be a challenge. Tom Cruise is probably 5'7", 5'8". I don't know how tall he is, but he's certainly not 6'2".
Right.
And that's what your average mannequin is. So if you have a Tom Cruise outfit in, it has to be reduced in every way, so it will just fit the costume. But that said, you're then making the costume to be displayed nicely. And putting a Tom Cruise costume on a standard mannequin just looks silly, ridiculous, not lessened.
Right. Yeah. We have a friend who always his secret to Michael J. Fox wardrobe was always children's mannequins, basically. Like he'd make them a little taller, but just in terms of the dimensions of the head size and the thickness of the arms.
And likewise, Johnny Depp's Pirates of the Caribbean costume on a coat hanger, it doesn't look like anything. But put it on a mannequin that's Johnny Depp's size, it becomes Captain Jack Sparrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a major shift in perception for that costume, in a way.
No, it really does. That's
it delivers up front rather than you going, well, if this is the costume, but when you see it looking like the character from the film, it's taking you one step closer, I think. So
it really comes alive in a great way, which is again like the Kirk you did for Ryan. There is you're not doing the stuff where I can't stand like faces and likenesses or any of that kind of stuff.
I've done a few of those.
That's not my favorite thing. And what I love about that Kirk is it's 100% Kirk in body and almost the action. I mean, it feels like Kirk. Like I feel like you're interpreting the character. There's an action to the pose, a boldness that is Kirk that is captured in the body itself. It's like body acting, and yet I'm not looking at like William Shatner death mask or something in a great way.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, credit where credit's due. Ryan said, "Look, I'd like it in a subtle pose." This, and it's then a question of trying to deliver that. Because there's nothing more ridiculous than a mannequin with an expansive pose, because it's massive, and you always catch your arm or your head on its arm, or they're impractical if they're exaggerated. So it's finding that happy medium.
I don't know what the magic sauce is, but it does look like Kirk even without the head and without the hands. It's just it is the character. And I mean I think that is the magic of what you did there, and what I've seen you do with other mannequins, because your mannequins are all over Prop Store and then many collectors' houses that I've been to, is that they're not, you didn't make them screaming into the radio, so it's not that kind of pose, but it isn't also I
try to dissuade that, if I can.
I begged for it, but it's also not the the garment store, the kind of clothing store sort of guy that looks like he's in rigor mortis in the window. So you find this kind of natural human pose to it, where it does feel in movement, but it doesn't feel posy. And I think that's the trick.
Thank you for that. I mean, I'll take that. Thank you very much. But this is all tempered by the fact that I hate mannequins.
That's the title of this podcast.
With a passion. Yeah. It's one thing to dress a mannequin in a retail outlet in summer clothes when you've got every size available, and another thing to dress a mannequin in an Armageddon spacesuit, which is quite a different thing. And they drive me mad. They really do. I mean, it's fine.
At this point, many years and many sort of builds into your prop displaying whatever, third act, fourth act, I don't know what act we're in, but are you using for the most part store-bought mannequins that you're modifying, or at this point are you making like your own mannequins from scratch?
No, I've found a particular mannequin, male and female, that I like. Then there's a go-to company that I get them from. They're reasonably priced, and I'm au fait with how they're made, so I can change them.
So you can adjust them as you need to.
Adjust them.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
I was just
curious. There's been a big shift
in,
without getting too tiresome on mannequins, there's been a big shift in mannequin construction. They used to be fiberglass and very heavy, and therefore quite difficult to change. But these days, they're all injection molded plastic, which makes them much easier to work with. So, that's enough mannequin detail chat.
That's what we're here for, Chris.
Well, quite,
give the people what they want. And without giving away your little trade secrets, I got to see the innards of this one as you put it together too, and you've made
I was swearing, wasn't I?
There was lots of swearing, and I hate mannequining up in my office as you put it together. But you made you did the Millennium Falcon thing you made a bunch of special modifications yourself to it, where you've taken the mannequin, you've made it almost easier to modify and work with little tricks and things that you've adapted into them, having learned the trade. And I saw how you kind of because William Shatner, as we learned from the 1.5 lifts in his boots, was not as tall as he wished to be presented on film. So there was a bit of a
how dare you
shattering the illusion.
There's a bit of a shrinking that you had to do of the kind of mid torso area to make him properly
it's all nip and tuck all the way down the line.
And it was just fascinating to see all that stuff. And I know you hate mannequins, but you are the mannequin
it's a fun
whisperer.
thing to say, isn't it? Wow. Okay. I'll take that. But either way, the arm's bent there, but that can be unbent quite quickly, things like that. So it's also what you feel is a nice pose now. If you get rid of the gun, you'll think, well, oh, God, he's got his arm out there now. But, I can even tell you how to do it, and the arm can be reconfigured relatively easily. And stuff like that's important, the future of these things.
Flexibility and
flexibility and the like. Yeah.
One of your big services that you do is a restoration service, and I imagine
I like that stuff. Yeah.
And that's I've seen you restore studio scale models, puppet heads. You kind of like your history of working in this multimedia of our film business. You've learned how all of these things were designed, assembled, and put together, and then also how to go in and fix them. And the materials they made them with 30 years ago, so don't use that glue on that one. And so if that helps you answer the question. I
really do enjoy the restoration stuff a lot. In my talents, my curious talent set as it stands has developed over the years, and it's all down to the prop store. Well, it's all down to my original art career, working in animatronics as a mechanical designer, and then working for the prop store, because I've gone on another branch as being an artist. I do art, I sell art. And this is all back down to this progression through the prop store and the like. It's opened up my horizons considerably, and I'm very grateful to the prop store for that in many respects. And not least
brought to you by Heritage. Sorry, go on.
The second half of this podcast is brought to you by
HeritageAJ.com. Go on, please.
So all the restoration stuff is very challenging and very satisfying to do. Yeah, I like it a lot. And stuff, as you know, foam latex degrades horribly in this day and age, and it's best left alone. But some, particularly in transit, shipping, things don't come out the other end quite the way they went in. So you need someone there to take care of it. And of course, you have Tom Spina in the States who does that sort of stuff. And at the moment, there's me over here. Though there are plenty of other people, I'm sure, who could turn their hands to it, but they're gainfully employed in films and other areas, I suppose. But as Ryan said earlier, I'm a bit of a one-stop shop. I can pretty much cover all bases at the moment. So, I'm quite lucky in that respect.
Yeah,
really just gorgeous work.
Well, thank you. Nice, I can't think of a particular notable mannequin. They're all interesting. Though one of my clients has got Robert Mitchum's jacket from Ryan's daughter, which I made a display for, and that chimed with me for some reason. It just
film or Mitchum, or what was it?
It was Mitchum's jacket from the film, and it just chimed. It was just. I didn't covet it at all, but it seemed like a real film prop,
right?
Bizarrely, because of its age. You know what I mean? It's history, as opposed to something from a recent science fiction film or science fiction series. I mean, I know you've had covered this in a recent podcast, in that sort of respect of fakes and all the rest of it, and copies and that sort of stuff.
Yes.
But it was a fun thing to work with, something that old. And another client showed me I'm not really into guns particularly, but he had a pistol. It was Clint Eastwood's Josie Outlaw, Josie Wales Outlaw pistol. And it's like, wow, that's something.
very, very, very
cool. And I enjoy that sort of stuff, really. Though the plethora of modern stuff is just what it is, I suppose. Sure. Really, I'm sure over time it'll become more revered.
No, every movie that we all kind of shrug at right now is some future collectors. That's the best movie ever made. Okay, good for you.
Yeah. One of my favorite props I did was the Aliens motion tracker, the actual motion tracker, because there were no LCD screens back in the day when they did Aliens. So they stripped out one of those tiny Sony TVs and use that as the screen, but it's about that long. Right. So it sticks about 5 inches out the back of the Hubble tracker display. So when you're holding it, you have to really hold it at exactly the right angle. So you can't see.
You have to shoot it so you can't see how ridiculous it actually looks.
Exactly. But in the film, it looks great. And I had the video files for it as well. And I did a display which had a little video little screen so you could see the video file being played as well, and that was great fun.
Oh, that's a fun display.
That's
I did enjoy that. Yeah, it's still around. It's still. Brandon asked me about it only a couple of weeks ago, and so I think it's in the States at the moment. But it's a fun thing, a real fun thing.
Very, very cool. Yeah, that's excellent. The question I have been dying to ask. It's really perhaps even the title of this episode or the second title of this episode, and you may not know the answer. Why the hell can I not get a slat wall display in the United States of America? What the hell's going on? Why is it impossible? I do not get it. I don't understand. All I want is a display like Ryan's where I can move stuff around because it's a slat wall, and it does not exist in the United States. Any ideas why?
Really?
What the conspiracy is?
I've not even heard that. I really haven't heard that.
I'm sure it may exist somewhere, and I maybe could have them made for myself at like an insane expense. But there is nobody, like, even from like a Acme display company or whatever. It is not a, what's the word I'm looking for? It is not a commonplace item, like the way these things are. And it's just wild to me.
I'll have a word with some people I know.
Oh, perfect.
And I'll get my people to talk to your people.
I'm sure it's just more anti-American sentiment coming from over here, Dave.
From Lord Slat. That's the man, the British man that invented the slat wall.
I confess that was not what I was expecting when you started that little preamble there. You got me there. Yeah.
That's what has been bothering me for years, and it continues to bother me. If anyone in America, anyone listening to this show knows how I can get a slat wall display, Ryan, move your head to the left or the right. I want one of those. I just want a display case like that in America. That is what I want. If someone
they're 10 a penny over here, aren't they, Ryan? You just get them everywhere.
Everyone has them. I see them everywhere. They're like on the street corners. I don't understand it.
You can actually have your wall made with slats in it. So if you wanted, like, if I wanted to do the whole wall of my office,
just a house of slats. Yeah,
I could go to the studs and just build slats into it, and then just move things around.
That's my favorite Hammer movie, House of Slats.
House of Slats. Peter Cushing.
Peter Cushing in House of Slats. Yeah. Because you're not a prop collector, right? You don't collect. You don't keep. Did you ever keep little odds and ends from your own work as personal mementos?
Mementos, yeah, but nothing of any note.
Right, not a collector. Yeah,
not really. I mean, some of it might be worth something, but it's not my bag. Really, I think it's because of having worked in the industry for so long and seen this stuff up close all the time. There's not much mystique in it for me.
Yeah,
I get that.
Not that there is for you. Well, there is for you guys, which is exemplary given you work in the industry. You know.
Well, there's mystique in the stuff that I loved as a kid but didn't work on. I mean, I think there's less mystique in the things that I stare at every day.
Oh, sure, yeah, quite. Yeah,
I'm guessing the day I get hired and then fired from a Star Wars movie, I'm going to sell my entire collection. So that's just we'll see what happens. But yeah, I'll be just like, fuck. But so again, you're not a collector, but if you were to have one thing from a movie you worked on, maybe something you actually built for that movie, what would you have sitting on your desk behind you in a display case, a slat display case made by Tom Spina in America and sent to you?
One of my own. Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know. I really don't know. What have I done? But I've got a list in front of me, the films I've done, because I knew you'd ask me, and I never remember them all. I don't know. Oh, maybe I did Mad Eye Moody's Eye.
Fantastic!
I did the practical effect.
That's my answer now.
That is a great answer. That is a fantastic answer.
That would be a fun thing to
have.
That's
so cool. Yeah, my kids love that.
That would be a nice one.
I've been going through. We started about 6 weeks, 2 months ago. I gave up the ghost of, like, you have to read the books first because all their friends were seeing it, whatever. So I was like, okay, we're going to watch the movies and then you're going to love them so much you're going to go back and read the books. So we started, kind of one a weekend. We would watch it in sort of 2 parts. So they're up to Deathly Hallows Part 1 now is where we just started that.
Okay. Yeah.
And so they've been tearing through, but they loved Mad Eye Moody. They just thought that was the coolest thing they'd ever seen. And my older one knows now that all this stuff is sort of made by movie people, and she's really into this. Like, how did they do that? And that one was I was looking at. I was like, that's not a computer effect, because I'm looking at it, I can kind of tell, and it's real, and I don't know the answer, but that's a really cool prop.
They enhanced it did have enhancement on a few shots, but there's a lot of shots where it's purely mechanical. And it was me.
So
I was operating it as well. So I was the Mad Eye. So yeah, I think if I had any trophy, it would probably be that.
Yeah, that's a good one.
This is an odd question that is not, I love that answer. This is my own question. For you to operate, is that a different union? Do you have to be in a separate union? Because in the States, I think it's different unions.
Yeah, not anymore.
Not anymore.
No,
gotcha.
it used to be. Yeah,
okay.
It used to be. You had to be in the actors union. But no, it's all.
I think in the States,
or certainly was towards the latter stages of my career. Yeah,
right. I think in the States, it's still the actors union, and so if you can build something, but if you end up working it, you end up getting like residuals as an actor for having worked it. I believe in the United States still. I don't know if it's changed.
Yeah, I must chase that up. I haven't had any
Someone
checks.
may owe you like a solid like 14 pence.
Well, nobody watched those movies, Dave. So you're really
those movies lost money. I believe I was talking to the
that's what Warner said.
They never made it into the black. Never made.
No, one of these days, give them another 100 years. Ryan, do you have an answer? Picking something
from Chris's resume.
From Chris's, incredible resume.
I love a tumbling Kermit. But that's a very that's a low hanging fruit answer, and I have my Muppets, which are right over here, and Chris actually worked on for me, and love them very much. I've got to go back to my childhood. I want a animatronic turtle head. I want a Raphael head, which would be like with the working operating facial muscles and all that, where you can just, I don't know, send an emoji into the machine and it makes the emoji.
They haven't weathered well over time.
I know.
Oh, have they? They aged poorly?
Yeah. Well, foam latex.
Gotcha.
It's there are many reasons why foam latex goes the way it does, but not least it's one of the great problems with looking after all film props.
But I'm sure at some point you must have restored one here or there. I know Spina's done a bunch of them in the States, but have any ended up back in your shop?
No, I haven't had any actual turtle heads.
I've
seen them without skins, just the mechanical heads and the like. Yeah. But no, I haven't seen any of the full size things. It's a little bit too close to home for me anyway. I'd rather the night shift, clean them out. I'll leave it there with those.
The mystique is really dead on that one, I imagine.
Yeah. So, Dave, what would yours be? What did you...
It's funny. I was going back and forth, and I do love The Witches. I love that movie. I'm not sure there's a prop I need to have from it, but I do love that movie. So I was definitely focusing in on the two that I was focusing in on, oddly enough, were Babe, and you mentioned a pig already, so I feel like I don't want to just say that. But I love that movie, and I did really love the way the creatures worked. They were so alive in a wonderful way. But I'm ultimately, I think I'm heading towards The Mummy, because it's a movie I keep talking about getting something from anyway.
Yes.
And this seems like an opportunity, because you worked on it, to finally like land on get something. I'm just curious, what did you make? What were you working on in The Mummy?
Made background mummies in costumes and stuff like that. And,
fun. Okay.
So like
when they're those the ones that are like chasing after them at the end, in the end sequence.
That's the second one, I think, with the warrior mummies. Yeah, but nonetheless, all that sort of stuff.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and various practical gags revolving all around those or whatever.
Those things were really, really neat.
Very cool.
I love that. I mean, I'll pick, the key in the book just to pick something, because I like The Mummy so much and whatever. But one of these days I will get something from that film. I don't know. I gotta just do it already and just take the leap of faith.
Yeah, it was a fun film. And like, there were only so many where you walk on set and go, wow. And The Mummy was one of those. Right. The interior, the treasure rooms and the like and stuff like that. It was just great fun to sort of walk those corridors and see that stuff. It was good stuff.
Fantastic. Chris, how can people get a hold of you if they would like to get a hold of you? Do you have a website or an email that you want to
promote
share?
Yourself and promote your exhibit.
Promote your art. Your art.
All I have is just chrisbartonart.com, and I'm on Instagram at Chris Barton Art. So if anybody wants to have a look at that, there's not much film prop stuff there. There's a little bit, but not a lot. But there's a lot of my art is. So but through that I am contactable. So that's probably the best route.
Go for the art, stay for the props, and if you're check out the art. Yeah,
if you're in Central London, you can go see Chris's art. He makes.
Oh wow.
He makes giant, oversized cassette tapes and original album cover art. They're awesome. They're amazing.
I paint the inlays on canvas using acrylics by hand.
Oh wow!
And then build giant case and a giant custom matched cassette of the original cassette, be it transparent or otherwise.
How giant is giant? How giant?
Four times life size. So.
Okay, so not fill the wall.
No. It's quite large.
But very cool.
Yeah, it's a garden called Muforia in London. So if anybody's passing by that, they should pop in Berwick Street.
Yeah, down in Soho. Yep.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, thanks
very cool.
Yeah, thank you.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
This has been really fun. Really nice to
thanks for having me.
Chat. Yeah.
Well, thanks, Dave. It's nice to meet you, and it's lovely to have a bit of a chin wag with you guys.
Really,
I do watch most of your stuff, and I'm always entertained and interested in what you do.
God bless. So, yeah. I don't know what else to say, Ryan. Please follow us on. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're listening on a podcast app, please subscribe. Give us a rating, please. That would really help.
Good rating.
Yeah, good rating. That too. On the YouTube channel, subscribe, leave a comment, give a thumbs up on it. All of these things help the algorithm. I don't know if we mentioned this on the last show. We made $30 from YouTube last month.
We did. So it's really happening, guys.
Yeah, it's really coming together. I think I was thinking about this. This is not the right time to be doing this. We should have done this at the top of the show. But anyway, I think we should take the $30 and start a small pool and buy some small props. Put all of our YouTube money into
just turn it into
teeny
props.
Tiny little props that we normally maybe like call sheets and things that we wouldn't necessarily have purchased.
From tiny acorns, great oaks may grow. So you never know.
There you go.
Yeah.
But I think that's what we need to do. So please do all that liking and subscribing and whatnot. And what's our email, Ryan?
dreamsaremadeofpodcast@gmail.com. And check out Chris Barton Art and at Chris Barton Art on Instagram, and go his way with displays. But always mention to him when you're hiring him that if Ryan has stuff with you, please finish his stuff first. That's the only thing we ask here at the Stuff Dreams Are Made Of.
Indeed. Yeah. Nice to see you guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.